Very professional. Very professional. Okay, I think we are streaming live. Hello, everybody. My name is Scott Skiba. I'm the Executive Artistic Director for Cleveland Opera Theater, and welcome to our Masterclass online. Really excited to have Corinne Hayes, a super fantastic stage director, works all over the country. She's on staff at Washington National Opera. We're on the same roster together. Shout out to Marvel Arts Management. Super excited to have you here, Corinne. Thanks for joining us. And we have two very talented singers, singing actors, wonderful human beings with us, Michelle Lerch and Spencer Lawrence Boyd. They will introduce themselves as they set their piece up, but I'm going to hide my video, mute myself. You all have a good time. Let me know if there's any trouble. If any of you watching have any questions, just shoot it in the comments and we'll try to get to it. And if there are any singers who are watching that would like to take part in a future masterclass online, just put your info in the comments or send me a direct message or reach out to us via info@clevelandoperatheater.org. All right. Thank you all. Have a great time.
All right, thanks, Scott.
Hi there. My name is Michelle Lerch, and I'm going to be singing I Could Learn to Like You from The Revolution of Steve Jobs by Mason Bates. And my accompanist today is a recording done by Suichi Umeyama. Your brain, it's always clicking, 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 clicking away. You could be a genius or a psycho, yet I could learn to like you, baby, like I liked bizarre diets. Usually sure this French hygiene, anti-antiperspirant, budding Buddhist, and you may never know what you want in life, but your mind keeps working, working, searching, percolating, clicking, 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 clicking away. I could learn to like you, like a lot, and when we're together, something just connects.
Thank you so much, Michelle. Before we get into the sort of meat and potatoes of our work session, can you give us just a little bit of information about this piece? Because I wouldn't be surprised if there are several people that are listening and watching with us today that have not yet encountered this opera.
Yes, of course. Well, it's about Steve Jobs, and the whole entire opera is snapshots of his life, and they kind of go in and out of order. And this is an early memory that he has with one of his first girlfriends, Chrisanne. And she is this character who's fallen madly in love with Steve Jobs. She loves him for all of his faults and his brains. And in this scene, we've just kind of reconnected after a stint of long distance. And we're in an apple orchard and we took acid. And I sing this song And then at the end of this aria, in the next couple of measures, the acid kicks in. And it's really cool. The background turns into this psychedelic scene, and Steve starts to hear all of these beautiful instruments coming out into the woodwork. So that's kind of what's going on in this scene.
No, that's great. Thank you so much. It was really exciting to come to study a little bit of this aria in preparation for this class, because this is a piece that we all knew about when it was being commissioned and when it was being produced, and it's made the rounds a little bit. They've done it at Santa Fe, I think, and then at Seattle, maybe Minnesota Opera. I know that there have been a few different productions now, and it's really starting to enter the sort of contemporary opera zeitgeist. So it's really exciting to see these kinds of pieces. I want to propose with this piece a little thought experiment, if I could.
Yes.
What if there is no such thing as an aria? This particular character, so as you identified, you know, they've been apart for a while, they've been trying to do long distance things. Steve was at college. He comes back and he's sort of floating in his life. He's a dropout, as you said. He doesn't know what he wants. He may never figure it out. And she starts to, well, what is she getting back from him is my question. So we have all these wonderful moments where she puts something out that could be sort of gently teasing or really blunt or hinting at something really important. Something very significant she never says is, I love you.
Yeah.
Right? She really plays with this idea of, oh, you know, you might be all right. It's possible I kind of like you. I might keep you around. And there's sort of a coy flirtation through the whole thing, but she also finds those moments where she can bring in something that feels a little closer to the truth.
Right.
So I wonder if there's value in trying to really specifically find Steve's responses as you start to lay out these moments, and why then we go from ideas like a dropout, jobless, living at home. Ooh, that hurts. Often distant, often moody. But then she backs up and she's like, oh, but that brain clicking away. And that's one of the things that not only is appealing to Chris Ann, but is also so intrinsic to who Steve is.
Right.
That sort of brings him back into the conversation, even if you started to like, wow, I just got back and you're telling me that I'm, you know, useless. Thanks a lot. When she gets into the sort of little pokes at his appearance and his hygiene, all of these moments have to have, well, let's start with what is your objective in this aria? What are you trying to accomplish? And then how do we use these moments to accomplish it?
So I think I'm trying to hold his attention. He's so one-minded, and he loses track so easily, that I finally have him all to myself, and I think I don't know what to do with it. And I see him, you know, we play fight, but then I see him kind of go off and focus on other things, maybe digging around, grabbing an apple from the trees, not really paying attention. And I think I just want to hold his attention and live in that moment and that little bubble while I have him there.
Absolutely. And I think that feeds really beautifully into the different tactics that she plays here. So when we start in, the sort of blunt insults are almost right off the bat. Then she backs off and tells him how amazing this machine of a brain he has are. Let's look just at that transition. A dropout, jobless, living at home, often distant, often moody, and you don't even know what you want in life. What is Steve's reaction there? What kicks you into, but your brain, it's always clicking? What changes that makes you go into a new tactic?
So I think that I say all of those things and he already knows it. He already knows he's dropped out and he's living at home and he doesn't care. And I think I see him, I just like imagine that he's fixated on something, and I'm watching the inner workings of his brain make a connection there. And that's what draws me in there.
So you're being drawn into him rather than you trying to draw him back to you.
Yes.
Interesting. So when does that change?
Right into the clicking away, and then you could be a psycho. I think I finally get his attention, and then I try and play with it a little bit.
It almost
And
has the
then-
feeling of rubbing his head or stroking his hair or something, and then turning him to face you and calling him a psycho.
yeah,
Like really forcing him to come back to you. If you've watched him drift off,
yeah,
watch those wheels start to turn and you know, deal with the modem speed of, you know, one of these.
right.
What brings him back to you. So what I'd like to do, and what I think I'd like to really focus on in this particular session, is making those beat changes where you get new information from Steve, and that changes your tactic in this objective of just trying to hold his attention, which I think with a man like this, both a character and a real human being, would not be an easy thing to do.
Right.
I really want to find ways to externalize Steve's reactions so that we see you get that information back and why those beats change.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah.
So can we look, you were so kind as to send me these timestamps. Let me see if I can. Hold on. Too many screens. I think we're all feeling that right now, screen fatigue.
I have like 4 up right now. Just which one do I look at?
Right. I know the feeling. You know what I'd like to do? Let's start at the beginning.
Okay.
That'll be the easiest thing. And let's look at the beats. The 2 big changes are going into, but your brain is always clicking, clicking, clicking is when you really start to feel him drift away from you, and then bring him back to us for you could be a genius or a psycho.
Okay. Yeah.
Let's see if we can sharpen that up and really put Steve in the space with us.
Ooh,
That's great. Go ahead.
sorry. I could learn to like you, weird as that may be. I could learn to like you, maybe like I thought I'd drop out, jobless, living at home, often distant, often moody, and you don't even know what you want in life, but your brain, it's always clicking, 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 clicking away. You could be a genius or a psycho, yet I could learn to like you, maybe like I liked.
But let's hold there for a second, Michelle. Good. I wonder, so now I see that she is feeling him slip out of her hands a little bit. And I think that that's really important because I think she spends this entire aria, like you said, trying to keep him there,
Focus, yeah.
trying to keep his focus, trying to keep him in the same space that she's been in, which is something that they probably haven't been able to do with the distance.
Right.
But I do wonder, when does she know it's working?
I think for me, it's not really until the very end that I could learn to like you, just the little like snippets. Because I think I also make a decision that I don't care if his focus isn't 100% on me.
Great,
I
where
want
is
it,
that?
I want it, but I also realize like his brain is so a part of who he is that I can't take that away. And I think towards the end, right before the drugs kind of kick in, that I could learn to like you is when I kind of gain his focus again.
So when is the moment? I like this idea that she that the objective somehow shifts, that rather than trying to keep his focus with you, you're trying to step into the focus with him, trying to meet him where he is. Where does that happen?
I think the second teasing, the bizarre diets, usually shoeless, I think it starts off as a tease, but then it's like, this would be my life. I would have bizarre diets. I could be shoeless. Maybe I'm Buddhist.
It's possible I could be a tech genius hippie and just wander around.
Yeah.
I wonder, so the bizarre diets, when we get into that second sort of teasing section,
Mm-hmm.
have you managed to get his attention back to where you want it? What causes the beat change of the letting go that you're talking about?
So, let's see. So I imagine the clicking away, and then I say, you could be a genius or a psycho. And I
Right?
imagine I caught his attention there,
Sure.
and he laughs and he giggles.
Wonderful.
I say, I could learn to like you. And then he's like, yeah, 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 yeah. And then I'm like, maybe like a lot. And then I think that's when he is starting to like lose his focus again, where I'm going bizarre diets.
Can I propose something?
Yeah.
So we've got this really wonderful sort of textural change in the clicking and turning and working sections, those two sections that it goes and it sort of sits at the bottom of the staff and it gets very sort of strictly rhythmic. It's not as free and sort of ornamental as a lot of the rest of this is.
Right.
I wonder if those two sections are mirrors of one another. So what I'm proposing is that in the bizarre diet section, maybe you've gotten back into the banter that you're accustomed to with him. So it gets, like you were saying, he laughs and it's fun and it's playful and you can feel that like 17-year-old love again. And really, I mean, they're only like 19 now, but a lot can change in 2 years. So you've got this really fun, connected, playful banter.
Yeah.
That kicks into place with that whole almost Buddhist, what is it? Budding Buddhist, sorry. And then he starts again to drift away. So that the second clicking, working, searching, percolating section.
He started to.
And that's when you decide that you can just meet him where he is.
Yeah.
Because I think the structure, I think you've identified something really key to the structure of this aria, which is Chrisanne has to make a decision whether Steve comes to her or she goes to Steve.
Right.
And then this is a decision that both the character in the opera and the real Chrisanne had to make several times. And then, of course, the baby and all of this got very complicated. You know, Steve disavowed the child for a long time. But here she's starting to understand what it would mean to commit herself to a man like this, to this man. So if we think about building it into the sort of architecture of the aria, those two sections, I think, are rough mirrors of one another or sort of parallels of one another. So if we are able, the next time we're going to jump in and somewhere in the middle, I'll tell you in a second, to find the playfulness and the connection that she so badly wants, and we get a flash of that with our diets, and it feels fun and it feels young and it feels really connected and real. Then when he goes away, she knows that she can have what she wants, but she also has to meet Steve on his terms.
Right.
Does that make sense?
No, it makes perfect sense.
It's almost exactly what you're talking about. We're just delaying that beat change a little bit, and it's giving us a moment to see the two of them really happy together, really interact with one another. Yeah. I love that you've put his laughter into this. And I think that you can go even further than that in defining what his reactions are. Does he put his head in your lap? Does he stare up at the sky? Does he, like you said, he starts to, I think you said he's like starts to pull up grass or something.
Yeah.
Pluck you a clover flower. I mean, you can be really specific in exactly what he's doing and where in the physical space and in the sort of liminal space of your relationship the two of you are meeting. When do you make contact with him?
I think that you could be a genius or a psycho. I've definitely made contact with him. And then I could learn to like you, maybe like a lot. Maybe that's when he starts, like, he has his head in my lap and he's kind of staring off into the abyss. And then I say bizarre diets and he kind of gets up and we can have that playful banter.
Bingo. Good. Great.
And then budding boo hoo 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 dist. And then as soon as I say, and you may never know what you want in life, I think he's like, I've heard that enough. And that's maybe his cue to start looking at something. Or
I think you're on the right track. I think I would be wary of it feeling like a rejection.
mm-hmm.
Especially because I think that what you've described to me is Chris Ann wanting to meet Steve where he is.
Right.
And if Steve is closing that door, that's going to be a hard thing for us to bridge.
Mm-hmm.
So the shifting away has to feel pretty gradual, I think, and she has to follow him. Does that make sense?
Yes. So maybe there it's like the picking with the grass, or like making something like.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, not only, so you guys are probably outside, right? I think this is usually staged sort of in a park or in a little wooded area or something, which is a good place to be if you're on acid, I guess. So there's so much potential for these two to make contact with their world. And as Steve starts to really feel his tactile world, he can drift off that direction. I think that's really a potent image. Right. And she can sort of watch him discovering the world. And I think that's really, there's something about meeting him there that's really important as well.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think that makes more sense than him having a negative reaction, because he's starting to feel the drugs. So he's starting to play with things and make things. Maybe makes like a little, like, I don't know, flower band. That's what I used to do when I was a kid.
Oh, me too. I tried to sell them at music festivals.
Yes.
Me. I was raised in
hustle.
Right. Can we try? Is there a way? Can we start at F and figure out that transition from getting into that playful banter and then letting him go and meeting him where he is?
Yes.
Fantastic. Take your time. I know that we're all learning new skills these days, like being a DJ.
Got it. Okay, I think it's at the right place.
Excellent. And if it's not, we'll jump in where we are.
You could be a genius or a psycho, yet I could learn to like you, maybe like I like bizarre diets, usually sugarless, French hygiene, anti-antiperspirant, budding Buddhist, and you may never know what you want in life, but your brain keeps working, searching, percolating, clicking away. I could learn to like you, like a lot, and when we're together, something just connects.
Yeah, Michelle, how do you feel about the shape of that? Does the sort of larger architecture of that start to make sense?
Yeah, it really helps. I mean, I have to, it's hard since we're not like sitting down and he's not here. I can't like do my initial reaction, which is to kind of like reach out and touch him.
Sure.
But having him there playfully, especially really helps, I think, make those fun jabbing bubble moments. And then it's easier to distance myself.
Right. And something that you're doing, I'm not sure if this was a deliberate choice or something that's just natural on your body that I think you might want to continue to explore, is the moments where the two of you are really engaged with one another. Your physicality is more active. Your gestures are more active. You feel really deliberately trying to draw something from him. And then the moments where you're just watching him do the thing that he does, watching his brain spin, watching him make flower crowns and also solve equations at the same time, or maybe using the flower crowns, I don't know. Then there's a beautiful sort of stillness. And that's the space where I really start to feel that she will come to him. And I think that that's really lovely. At the beginning, I have a question on how we set this up physically. Mm-hmm. So this is a bit of a challenge because in the context of the opera, the two of them would have already been sort of in the space. They have a little conversation about the microdot, and they're, he's complaining that he's not feeling anything yet. And they're sort of shooting the shit. They're having a picnic or whatever it is. They're talking about his weird diet. So they would already be sort of settled into this space.
Right.
In the context of the show, that's a reality that's going to be built for you, right? That's something that you and the director and your scene partner are all going to collaborate on together. Here, we have a little bit of a challenge when we're presenting this for auditions or in a masterclass setting or in a recital or something along those lines, that we have to do a little bit of world building right at the beginning.
Yeah. And
I can already see that you've made a couple of choices. Or at least what I'm seeing feels a little like she's building up to something.
Yeah.
And I think that that's an interesting choice, especially given the
what happened
sort of circuitous nature of this text, where she's hinting at, Steve, I love you. And instead, what she's giving is this sort of non-committal, over the shoulder,
right,
something that feels safer, potentially. So I think you're already starting to do this, but the thought that I would leave you with is, how do we get to Steve in the beginning?
So like you said, normally we would have already been talking
in the grass under a tree or something. Yes.
Right. And he's being really impatient because he wants the acid to like kick in, and I'm just telling him to relax and enjoy things. But since that's kind of hard to set up without anybody knowing that.
Right. Agreed.
Had it be kind of like we're in the apple orchard and he's being impatient, so he keeps, going up to trees and like feeling them and trying to get it to work. And I'm kind of like just following behind him like a little lamb and just like watching him. And that's me just building up to be like, guy could like you.
Okay. So you've lost him
mm-hmm.
at the beginning is what I'm seeing. So if we're thinking about the physical space, then he's wandered off, he is climbing a tree or whatever. And you're trying to re-engage him. So you have, like you said, you've got this sort of runway.
Right.
Now, as you continue to sort of build the physical architecture of this aria, because I think the active gesture that's met and sort of countered by the stillness is really a nice way to go and makes a lot of sense in the sort of journey of this. Mm-hmm. But start to think about how you can lay both of those things out at the beginning.
Yeah.
So is there a moment that at the very beginning, that she's just watching him? When that guitar solo kicks in, it gets a little busier, and maybe that's when she starts to actually try to go physically after him.
Right.
Is there a way for us to see both the, wow, I love this weirdo, and he's gonna wander off in the intro.
Crawl back over here.
Yeah, hey. So I wonder if there's a little sort of mini architecture that we could put into this intro that helps us really rapidly build that physical world that you're already developing so beautifully. Yeah. So I think all of the pieces are already there. We just have to lay them out in such a way that when we take that real stillness at the end, we understand that that's Chris-Anne meeting him where he is.
Yeah.
Does that give you something to chew on?
So yeah, it definitely does. Because with that introduction, it's very light and pretty. So you kind of just feel like you're like, I'm
yeah. Yeah.
No,
well,
I think
sorry, go ahead.
That stillness for sure.
Right. And I think that sets up, directors are often sort of suckers for symmetry. But there's also a nice symmetry to be gained from that sort of soft stillness that is activated by Steve.
Right.
That's activated by him picking something out of a tree and popping it in his mouth. Like this, you know, something. He does something that's like, oh no, I gotta bring it back.
I gotta get it back.
Exactly. One thing I think that Scott's gonna tell us that we have to hear some Mozart, which is never a half, always a get to. Something I just want to drop into your thought process as you continue to work on this is to really take a close look at what Mason Bates has given us for some of these rhythms and these articulations, and start to assign them really concrete tactics. I think that's already starting to happen just in the little bit of work that we've gotten to do. Yeah. But he's given us so much to play with in these moments that you are more active. We have this sort of fioritura. It almost sounds like Emily Webb's character in Our Town. And then we get this more, so almost, I mean, it's not quite Sprechstimme, that's not what I mean, but this very lower in your range, easy spoken simplicity. And I think that Mason Bates has given us so much of that texture that we just need to mine it for all it's worth. And I think you've already really started that. So I just like to wrap on very strong work on this. I think that you've got all of the architecture you need. Just make it as specific as you can. Put him in the room with us, especially when he is literally nowhere to be found. And as you go forward, don't be afraid to go back to the staccati and go back to some of those music effective markings and see how they really strengthen the choices you're making, and see how they can really generate those choices in a more honest and grounded in the score kind of way. Also, thank you for taking a risk with an aria like this. There are lots of things that we hear over and over again, and we, don't get me wrong, again, I would never say no to Mozart ever. But it's really exciting to hear some new repertoire. So thank you for bringing me to this piece.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for working with me on it. It's been really eye-opening, and it's given me a lot to kind of work on, and good homework, and get back to the roots of the piece.
Excellent. Well, enjoy it. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hi, give me just a second to get your score pulled up, and then I don't need this score. I'm not sure why I'm saying that. Okay, I'm ready. Whenever you are. Thank you. Go ahead and play, please.
All right, my name is Spencer Lawrence Boyd, and I will be singing Die Bildnis ist bezaubernd from Die Zauberflöte. Dies Bildnis ist bezaubernd schön, wie noch ein Auge je gesehen. Ich fühl es, wie dies Götterbild mein Herz mit neuer Regung füllt. Mein Herz mit neuer Regung füllt. Dies etwas kann ich zwar nicht nennen, doch fühl ich hier wie Feuer brennen. Soll die Empfindung Liebe sein, soll die Empfindung Liebe sein. Ja, ja, die Liebe ist's allein. Die Liebe, die Liebe, die Liebe ist's allein. Oh, wenn ich sie nur finden könnte, oh, wenn sie doch schon vor mir stände, ich würde warm und rein, was würde ich? Ich würde sie voll entzücken an diesen heißen Busen drücken und ewig wäre sie dann mein und ewig wäre sie dann mein und ewig wäre sie dann mein, ewig wäre sie dann mein, ewig wäre sie dann mein.
Thank you, Spencer. Before we get into the sort of nitty gritty, I love the youthfulness of your Tamino, and I love the impulse in him, because this character we want him to balance Papageno in a fundamental kind of way, but he can often get really stagnant in the body. And I love that there are moments that you're just going to chase after the thing being Pamina, of course, and you have to rein yourself back in. There's something really elegant, but that keeps him active in that. So thank you for that, and well-motivated interludes as well. I really appreciate it. Can you give us just a little recap? How did we get here, given circumstances, what's happening in this aria?
Sure. So I was being chased by a giant dragon. I fell and was, knocked out. And then I wake up and I find this guy I'm scared of him, and he's singing about how he's a bird, but he's also a bird catcher, which is confusing. And then three ladies show up and they say, here's this picture, you have to go to the queen and save this girl. And then I look at it and I'm instantly, in love, and I sing this.
Right. Yes, I appreciate your joyful ridiculousness in your description of this joyfully ridiculous opera. I would caution you to say that he is instantly in love. I think you're right, but one of the big things that we discover over the course of the aria is that that's what it is. If you ask him right at the beginning, dude, what are you feeling? He's like, I don't know. I mean, I have this fire in my belly and I'm a little hot around my collar, and he's feeling all of these things that he felt these things before?
I don't think in this way.
The strongest choice you can make is absolutely not no.
Yeah.
Right? So that all of these things are coming to him completely fresh and completely new, to the point where he takes the whole first half of the aria just to put words to them. So we'll get a little bit further into that. I do want to address the prop in the room. So I appreciate that you didn't try to sing to a portrait or to the palm of your hands. If you're doing this in real life, oftentimes you end up having to spend a lot of time connecting and then disengaging and connecting and disengaging. What I would say is, as you work forward in this, because this does sound to my ear like really excellent repertoire for you, when you audition with it, sure that we know, even via Zoom, which I think our next audition season might be kind of like this, we really need to know where she is.
Okay.
If you're going with the sort of silver screen in the sky, which I think makes great sense, because the more firmly you can establish exactly where Pamina is in that line of sight, then the moments that you pull away to try to figure out why you've got butterflies in your stomach, you can come back and that can give you more and new information. so that everything you discover over the course of the aria is generated externally. Does that make sense?
Yes.
It also gives the spectator, whether it be a panel or an audience or whatever it is, it gives them some really strong emotional architecture right off the bat. If you tell us exactly where she is, even though of course she is not physically in the space, but exactly where that image is, then when you break away from it, we know that he's tangling with something and he comes back to it and he learns something new. So even in a space like this, where is Pamina? Where is your silver screen?
It's our, like, what do they call it? The temperature control.
Your thermostat.
I picked that.
That is the most romantic thing I have ever heard.
Yeah.
Well done.
I like that.
That's fantastic. So what I would say is, as we step through this, let's really find, Scott gave you little clappy hands. I don't know if you can see them. Let's find the moments that we really engage with the image and find the moments where the image, we have to disengage from the image, whether it's just too overwhelming or whatever it is that drives you away, so that we can find the moments to reconnect. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Excellent. So let's do this in two parts. So for me, the aria has sort of two big sections. Does that seem reasonable to you?
Yeah.
So we have from Die Bildnis through Ja, ja, die Liebe ist allein. Ist allein, sorry. And then we get happy accompaniment, right? Can we do just the first section from the top of the aria through Die Liebe ist allein?
Mhm.
Excellent. Really think about when you engage and when you disengage and why, and we'll go back and shape a little bit of that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Dies Bildnis ist erzaubernd schön, wie noch ein Auge je gesehen. Ich fühl es, wie dies Götterbild mein Herz mit neuer Regung füllt. Mein Herz mit neuer Regung füllt. Dies etwas kann ich zwar nicht nennen, doch fühl ich hier wie Feuer brennen. Soll die Empfindung Liebe sein, soll die Empfindung Liebe sein. Ja, ja, die Liebe ist's allein. Die Liebe, die Liebe, die Liebe ist's allein.
There. Good, very good. It's already structurally clearer. We're starting to understand your, I call it emotional architecture. I think I invented that phrase, or I picked it up from someone at some point, but we understand the sort of magnetic pull and push that this image of her is setting up and your discoveries are setting up. So just a couple things that I observed. I love the discovery in the beginning. It's like we see her for the first time, and that really puts us in that world, and that really helps, like I was saying earlier, to give us the grounding of where that image is. Keep that forever. It's wonderful. Is there ever a moment where you might actually try to go to her or reach to her?
I always thought it was right on this next line.
Oh, good. Okay. Right where I stopped you.
If I could go find her right now. But I mean, it could be earlier. I mean, there's certainly.
Well, I wonder. So we have this image is magically lovely, enchantingly lovely, as no eye has ever seen. The most beautiful thing anyone has ever seen. I feel it as this sacred image fills my heart with emotions I've never felt before, with new emotions, right? And then we have a moment where that's a lot. And you're already playing that. You pull away, and we get this something that I can't name. Dies etwas kann ich zwar nicht nennen. Yet I feel it here like burning fire, right? Doch fühl ich hier wie Feuer brennen. Can this sensation be love? Pulls you back to her.
Yes.
And then we say, Die Liebe ist allein twice. Yeah? At least twice. Am I right?
Die Liebe ist allein. I don't think it's allein is said more than once, but I could be wrong. I might be right before.
Well, I would find in the section where you're repeating the word Liebe, I would find a moment where you just want to go rushing towards that image.
Sure.
In this context, rushing toward that image is maybe half a step and a reach, right? You don't want to pop yourself out of the frame. But I do think we want to engage with the image in a way that drives us into the next beat. I just want to go grab her, but I can't. I have to go find her.
Okay.
Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Don't be afraid. So it's hard to judge from this perspective, but Scott mentioned that you're a pretty tall guy, which is fantastic. Tall tenors, lots of money. Don't be afraid to expand here with your thumbs up this time. Expand through the chest with the gestures and really free the arms up so that when you have moments where the agitation really kicks in, that physicality can take us to a place where we understand the turmoil. Does that, I don't want to tell you how to gesture.
Yeah.
If we were doing a production, it might. Depends. But I think you have this beautiful openness through here. So if we start, now I'm out of the frame. If we start to reach towards the image and he's like, no, she's not actually here, we can have a shift in where the weight is being carried. If he's being lifted from the chest and then he's being punched in the gut. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Push us into that new beat. It's always a hard thing to judge, especially in a context like this. Like you ask 100 people that work in classical vocal music, and they're going to give you 100 different answers to the question, should we gesture in recital? For my money, it has to be driven from the character. And the character, the Tamino that you're putting forward, has that sort of impulse in him, has that youthfulness, that I'm just going to run after the thing that's met and by the reason and the pause and this the man that we meet that's worthy of the temple at the end of the opera. Is there a way, I know this isn't super easy, is there a way to bridge from Die Liebe ist allein into the second section?
Yeah.
Can we do that?
Yeah, just right before Die Liebe.
Yeah, I think that'd be great, so that we feel that pull towards the image, and then we see active business Tamino trying to figure out what he's going to do next. Mm-hmm. Great, thank you.
Ja, ja, Liebe ist's allein. Die Liebe ist's allein. Oh, wenn ich sie nur finden könnte, oh, wenn sie doch schon vor mir stände, ich würde warm und rein, was würde ich?
Good. right, Spencer, let's stop there for a second. Yeah, do you feel then that sort of push and pull start to take shape?
Mm-hmm.
Good, good. What I would say that the next sort of technical layer of that is I think I would find a particular Liebe that the reach is on rather than staying in that position, because we lose a little bit of the tension, but that's something that you can play with as you put this together. But then what's wonderful is it's almost as if that rubber band sort of snaps into the next section, which gives us a nice push of momentum into the problem solving Tamino. So I wanted to point out something that Mozart does and Schikaneder do really well in this aria, is that the moments where we repeat text, it's because we're stuck on a problem, or we're tasting a word for the first time, we're experiencing something new for the first time. So, ja, ja, die Liebe, die Liebe, die Liebe? Like, really? Yes. So every time he says the word Liebe, it tastes a little bit different. He almost doesn't know what it means. He has to discover the meaning of the word over the course of that little section. It's almost identical to what happens with Pamina in Achifus when she comes to the word Todessein, to be, I would rather be dead, right? The first time she says it, she's like, wait, really? Is that real? Would I rather be dead than single? And then every time she repeats it, she gains a deeper and more complex understanding of what that word and that idea actually mean. Another time that I think they play with this in a really elegant and human way is ich würde. What does ich würde mean?
I would.
Yeah, I would. I don't know. What would I do? And that feels so human, because he goes from that interlude that gets us into "Oh, wenn ich sie nur finden könnte." That was the moment that you were playing with her, where it's just like action mode. He's like, no, I am the hero. I am the hero of this story. I'm going to figure this out. Okay, I just got to go find her. And as soon as I find her, what am I going to do? And that feels like a person. That feels like real life summed up in a few notes. That's, one of Mozart's great gifts, is that he teaches us how to sing humanity. So why I bring this up and I'm sort of babbling on about it is because those two würdes have to feel pretty different. And I think the pitch drops, right? Ich würde, is that right? Mm-hmm. And then, it's going to be, I can almost taste her. I can almost smell her. But then what do I do with her? This might be a sort of crass analogy, but it's almost like the dog chases the car. What would the dog do if he caught the car? Right? It's like, I'm gonna go after it, and then I'm gonna grab onto it, and I'm gonna hold it, and it's gonna be the best thing, and then what do I do? And that's what gets us back into the, oh no, I know what I would do. And that's when we really start to see that Tamino that is the hero of this show. Yeah. We've covered most of these things. When does he? Well, I think this is pretty clear in what you're doing already. When is he ready to go after her?
I think once he says Liebe ist allein, I think maybe that's a good one. The last one, the da 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 ist allein, and then I think at that point he's ready to go, and he's still figuring out what will happen, but I think he's committed to taking action.
Perfect. So this whole second section has sort of three big beats dramatically. We've got the I just got to go find her beat. What am I going to do when I find her? I know exactly what I'm going to do. I can go. Mm-hmm. So the structure of that, it actually kind of feels like Handel in a way. It has a very clear sort of big block structure. So the most important thing is how we get from beat to beat. So if we go, we've got all that agitation energy that we were playing with. Oh, wenn ich sie nur finden könnte, oh, wenn sie doch schon vor mir stände, ich würde, we just talked about all of that, then what am I going to do? Then he has to step back into it. And this might be a really good moment to connect with her as the prince rather than as the smitten guy.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's just a change in posture, I think, or just a change in the sort of weight and carriage in your body.
Mm-hmm.
Can we, oh my gosh, we're almost out of time. Scott, can we keep going or should we stop?
You can keep going. You can work a little over. Fine, yeah. So I was trying to like find the icon. I just figured I would hit the space bar.
That's great. Can we do just the second part? If you want to go back to the Ja, ja, die Liebe and do that second, the bridge into the second section and finish the second section with an eye toward giving us the prince that's worthy of the princess and worthy of the temple by the end of the aria.
Sure.
Awesome.
Ja, ja, die Liebe ist allein. Die Liebe, die Liebe, die Liebe ist allein. Oh, wenn ich sie nur finden könnte, oh, wenn sie doch schon vor mir stände, ich würde warm und rein, was würde ich? Ich würde sie voll Entzücken an diesen heißen Busen drücken und ewig wäre sie dann mein und ewig wäre sie dann mein und ewig wäre sie dann mein, ewig wäre sie dann mein, ewig wäre sie dann mein.
Very nice, very nice. I think the elegance at the end gives us a really strong understanding just over the course of the aria who this person is. So we get the impulse, we get the sort of brashness that this character can really exhibit through the opera, but we also get this really strong sense of self and sense of purpose. So you've given us almost like a mini biography of Tamino over the course of the aria. The one thing I would leave you with is take a look at that last section. So we've stepped into the sort of princely power, and there are a couple of moments where the harmony makes us doubt just a little. And it might be worth considering, is there ever a moment, even once he's put on the body of the prince, that he wonders whether this is actually going to be possible, or the fear creeps in, or that sense that he's, you gave us such a great description of the dragon and the ladies and how he's just like, what is happening here? If there's ever that sense of fish out of waterness that creeps back in. I don't have an answer for that, because I think that can be played a million different ways, but it's worth looking at. But I really think the structure that you're giving this and the shades of the character that you're presenting in the aria are really strong. And I can't say this enough. I appreciate a youthful, energized Tamino. It's really a lovely open character.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. That was fun.
Yeah, we're bringing Michelle back here to say goodbye. So thank you, Corinne. Thank you, Spencer. Thank you, Michelle. Thanks for being part of this. It's always a highlight of the week, just to feel connected and feel like we're making some art, even though we're we're all many, many miles away. So thanks for taking some time out of your day. Thanks for sharing your work and being open to do that, and also sharing the performances, so that folks can tune in and see it. So really appreciate you all. Be safe. Have a great weekend, and be good. Any parting words of wisdom, Corinne?
No, I can't tell you guys how much I miss this.
Oh, I know, right? It's like oh, it's electric to just get to do it again. You think, oh wow, I want to do this a lot more. So let's have you back. You can come and do some more.
Thank you. It's really wonderful. Thank you for sharing this today. We're all feeling a little isolated and separated from our art, which is the most collaborative of all forms. And I think that just getting a little bit of a taste of that, at least for me, is like a battery recharge. It's like a jolt. So thank you guys so much for sharing that with me and playing with me on these pieces today. I really appreciate it. And thank you, Scott, for having us.
Oh, hey, absolutely. Thank you, Corinne. Thank you, Spencer. Thank you, Michelle. Be good. All right. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. And if you're a singer watching and you want to participate, like I said, drop a thing in the comments or just shoot us an email at info@clevelandoperatheater.org. And we will see you again on Monday when we kick off again our Opera 101 that runs Monday through Friday. So thank you, everybody. Appreciate you all.